Hi, class. I wanted to review your writing on the web writing project. Now, I'll go over this information here, and we can also discuss any questions you have in class and have a second brief overview as well. So first of all, let's look at a few examples of different blog style articles. The first one we'll look at is the news style, and then kind of something that's very similar to the news style, more of the explainer article. Okay, now this article talks about farmers in Senegal learning how a scruffy shrub they used to burn away from their fields actually helps with soil erosion. So it's part of a Goats and Soda series. This series in general is a little closer to feature writing than it is to what we generally consider a kind of blog. Now, if we go back, we can see it's very similar to what we've seen in longer news articles. They have an opening where they talk about something that's happened recent or something that is common in the area, and they're introducing their topic and also where they are. So they say they're in Senegal, and they say the instructions were clear. Farmers should rip out the scrappy, I'm not going to try and say this, but these kinds of shrubs, clearing their fields before the planting season. The humble, hardy, leafy bursts of green somehow thrived in Senegal's semi-arid climate just below the Sahara, popping up knee-high out of the sandy soil like a green tumbleweed. So they give a kind of brief history of this practice of pulling out these shrubs and considering them weeds in especially in agricultural settings. But now they have farmers who and researchers who've realized that the shrubs actually help the crops and help to help to reduce soil erosion and other issues. And we can see they have the subheading we've discussed. So your enemy turns out to be your friend. They went into it with the what's happening now. So in this case, they aren't starting it the way we would consider for a traditional news article, where you start with what's happening right now, which is this change in attitude about the shrub. Instead, they gave us a very short background about it, condensed, something that introduces the topic for people who are unfamiliar with farming practices and with the specifically this shrub. And then they have a subheading further explaining the information about why these shrubs are important and information from experts and about the other shrub. And of course, they do have a photo, since most people would want to at least see what it looks like. So go through and you can see how they organize their information. They start with kind of an expansion of the opening here, and then a specific look at one of the agricultural consultants working with this kind of revamping of the shrub and how farmers approach it. And then they further explain the new agricultural philosophy and how the shrub is being managed in fields. And they end with a quote from one of the people mentioned in the article. So you can see there's a specific feel to the article. It's relatively short for some compared to some online articles, but in general, they're providing that information for the audience, explaining everything and providing subheadings so you can figure out where you are when or what they're talking about in each set of paragraphs. All right, now let's look at the explainer. And I don't know if you heard her earlier, but my cat was protesting because I am not playing with her right now. So this is from a group called the Spruce Pets. They have several different authors and editors who work on different topics, and they have, different approaches talking about the basics of owning all of these different animals and, training, health, nutrition, etc. Kind of the big overview of whatever the main topic is. And you can see they explain right here exactly where their article is within the website. So this article from 2020 asks, why do cats chase lasers? And it looks like a game, but it's mostly instinctual. And of course, we have our byline. So the person who wrote it and when they last updated it. Again, we have opening with a little photo and a paragraph explaining the topic. Kind of all cat parents are familiar with the eternal struggle between cat and laser pointer, and trying to understand why a cat would want to chase a light instead of chasing another kind of toy. And so they ask a couple of questions at the beginning. Why do cats chase lasers? But also, is it time to maybe use a different kind of toy? And they explain first the allure of the laser and how cats view them, since often other animals do view the world differently than we do, whether it's because of an enhanced sense of smell or fewer receptors in their eyes, so they see different colors. So we have a lot of information within here. They also have embedded links. For example, if I were to click on this part, it says certain inherent feline behaviors come out, and we can go to an article talking about those odd behaviors you don't quite understand from your cat. And they also have video embedded here, as well as other information and photos showing different things that your cat does. So as we can see, similar format, but a little bit different. This is more of what would be considered an evergreen topic. The previous topic from NPR it was more relevant when it first came out. So something that's happening kind of right now compared to something that is more or less a question a person might ask when they're looking up other information about their cat. And we can see they relate all of their subheadings to information and questions posed at the beginning of their article. why do cats chase lasers, the allure of the laser, and how cats see them. And then, of course, to the should we maybe not use laser pointers anymore as a toy. And apparently, there is a controversy about it. And it's the cat laser debate. Is it better to give them something that they can actually touch, or and is it maybe making them too frustrated? And then, of course, a call to action, laser pointer safety tips, how to engage with lasers safely when you're playing with your cat. Now, this last one about eczema is more of an explainer that you see on different health websites. This is from Very Well Health, and it was last updated July 25th, 2022. We can see that up here. And we have both a writer and someone who medically reviews it for accuracy. And they're in their eczema guide. They discuss symptoms of eczema or atopic dermatitis. And they begin with a little pronouncer. Eczema. So you can hear how to say the word, and also briefly defining what it is. So they're already giving you information at the beginning, explaining what it is and its other name, and then kind of generally where you would find it. And of course, this one uses footnotes. And then they provide a transition that's a little boring, but this is also a kind of general medical website. So you wouldn't expect it to have a lot of flash necessarily. This article will go over the signs and symptoms of eczema, and you will also learn how to prevent complications from the condition. So, frequent symptoms are provided here, as well as links to other conditions related to it. And you can see they're using a combination of full sentences and brief bullet points. And they still have those footnotes listed throughout. Now, with footnotes, you're including a little number, and then you have your reference list at the end and the person, and you have that information available for your audience. And also how this is diagnosed by healthcare providers, as well as the stages of eczema. So depending on the stage, you might see different symptoms and rash locations, as well as rare symptoms and any complications like infections. So they have a lot of information here. As you can see with explainers, most of the time it is going to be a bit longer. It's something where you want to provide enough information based on whatever topic you're discussing. So depending on which topic you choose, it will change how long your article should be. Okay, now the next type of article is the how-to article. And that's providing information how to do something. These are often combined with how-to videos or how-to slideshows. And there is also a list version. So both of these, it's a more linear format. It's something where you're going step by step with something, or maybe you are providing a best and or worst of items, or categories. Now let's take a look. Now this one is how to keep your house clean with indoor pets. We can see it was last updated December 2021. And again, we have that opening paragraph where we're talking about specifically pet owners. So pets may be fantastic, but they can also smell and carry germs and parasites, and balls of pet hair and other things can stain your carpet or other parts of your house. And so they're providing a way for you to clean. And their transition is don't let this put you off owning a pet. There are lots of easy ways to ensure that your pet and your home stay fresh and clean. So they are saying not only are we talking about ways to keep your home clean, but also your pet, because if your pet is clean, then your home it will be a little easier to maintain. So keeping pet hair at bay is their next heading. They're talking specifically to people who have furry pets and mention vacuum cleaners. Now, of course, if we click on vacuum cleaner, it'll bring us to one of those lists we talked about where it's like the best vacuum cleaners for pet hair to keep your floors and furniture clean. If you're someone looking for a vacuum, I mean, I guess you could look through this. There are tons of websites where they have this kind of information. And of course, anything that you click on, you can also go to the user reviews and see if those match up with what you read in the article and your needs. So embedded links again and subheadings. So our headline is here, how to keep your house clean with indoor pets, and then keeping pet hair at bay and the power of a good vacuum cleaner. With that extra nonlinear link, regular grooming is important. So they're, of course, bringing up the issue that you do need to groom furry animals. And they have a list of cat brushes, other things, and of course, other pet hair removal products like lint rollers. And so we have completed the pet hair section and are moving on to removing urine stains, which of course, hopefully we're able to kind of avoid them in general, but accidents happen with everybody. And so they provide some information. And of course, they have a little tip here as well. These little tip boxes, if you're familiar with the self-help genre or with other things, can be a great way to highlight key points in addition to having subheadings. If you want to include one, I am okay with it. Just consider the reason why you want to have it like that instead of having it under its own section. And we can see they have a few paragraphs about, dealing with the potty training and other kinds of messes. Now they also have regularly cleaning bedding and house. So of course, if you have a cat, you have to clean a litter box. If you have an animal with a cage, like a rabbit, then you want to make sure their stuff is clean. And of course, make sure that all of the places where they sleep and where you sleep are kept clean. And then they have picking the right cleaning and air freshening products. So a lot of information. And now of course they do have some like hazards of natural cleaning products as well, which can probably be its own article if you were so inclined. But they do include information about, going to poison control. Now, the interesting thing about how-to articles and with list articles is you're including that call to action within each section, basically. So you're explaining this is why this is good. Here's where you can get it, or how you can use this information under each subheading. Now, if we look at this best podcasts, we can see this was published in August 2022. Based on their other information, I would think this was updated. Yes. Yeah. So we can see it's an updated list. And they talk about tech, true crime, pop culture, etc. So they're trying to have a little bit of everything in this general podcast article. And they're talking about the current stage of streaming and podcasts. Again, they have how to, listen to podcasts, the golden age of podcasts and streaming. And then, of course, they include a little bit at the beginning explaining their guide. They have additional guides explaining how to listen to more podcasts or podcasts for kids. So appealing to that call to action for different groups of people who may be interested in this article. And they have table of contents with different kinds of podcasts. So these are all of their different subgenres, and they have links to each section. Now they have the best tech podcasts and a little extra information about where you can go to see them. So most of the time, the list is going to not only provide a couple of sentences explaining the item or explaining the, you know, the group or the podcast or streaming service, whatever it is that you're reviewing. It will also have information about where you can find it and what this particular viewer, or if they're collecting information from multiple people, what they said was the best about it and what would make someone like this or dislike it. And we can see this one also, in addition to having subheadings with each product, they also have a list of related tech podcasts. And in the case of Wired, it's a place where they can shamelessly plug their own Gadget Lab podcast and include a couple of other ones that may not have made their top list, but were still worthy of an honorable mention. And we can see there's a Best Society podcast. And now, personally, if I were to rewrite this, what I would do is maybe explain what I'm talking about, even though the titles of the types of podcasts are somewhat self-explanatory. Maybe say like, hey, this is what we considered a society podcast, or this is what we considered a tech podcast compared to, other genres. But you can see not only are they including a brief description explaining the podcast, they also have links to fairly popular platforms. Okay, now that we've covered how to and the list, let's look at what you need for your project. So, same as before with your other writing projects, you do need to include outside sources. What do I mean when I say outside sources? I'm talking about those reliable sources that are not yourself, that are additional information and something that you can paraphrase and include it in your work. We also want to include an interview with this. The best interviews in this case would still be probably someone who is a professional or otherwise directly involved with a particular topic or organization. And you would include direct quotes from those people as well as paraphrased information. You will also write a tweet for your project, and I'll go over that a little later. And of course, your references, and your references should include your outside sources. So when I'm talking about sources, of course, go back to chapter 2 if you don't remember. In general, I am talking about print, audio, and video. These could be books, magazines, articles, or any kind of web publication that is considered reliable. If it's a research group who collects their own information, or maybe it's a press release related to your topic from that particular organization, something as close to a primary source as possible. And of course, this could include audio or video. Often you will find interviews with different people online, and you could use that as one of your outside sources and then build off of it with your own interviews and with any additional information you need to improve your writing. And since this is considered a web writing project, you can use pictures or photos as well. However, the pictures or photos do not count as one of your sources. You do need to include information explaining where you found them, but they are not part of the minimum two reliable sources. Now, for your references, you should find something published this year. If you have an older reference and you really feel like that is going to work, then you need to ask me before you use it. Otherwise, it needs to be published this year. And you need to have a minimum of two of these sources. So, two reliable sources that are not the interview you're collecting. And again, review what makes a source reliable. Check about pages whenever you're looking at something. So if you're on a website and you think you want to use this information, but it isn't a website you're familiar with, you need to go to their about page, see who's writing it. How is this being published? Is this a particular company or organization who may have a stake in whatever they're publishing in a way that would influence the way they're collecting or writing their information? Look at that kind of stuff, and it'll help you to understand whether or not it's something you can use in your own writing. And whenever you collect that information, remember you're paraphrasing these sources. Occasionally, so very occasionally, you might want to use a direct quote, but you normally need to paraphrase that information. You don't want to include direct quotes from those. You are including direct quotes from your interview. So, your interview, who am I normally talking about when I talk about interviews? You want to start with someone who is a working professional, That could be an instructor. It could be someone who has their own business. It could be someone who works in that particular field for a company. Um, those are going to give you more reliable, well, most of the time, reliable first person narratives. So you want to have that information whenever possible. If you do have someone who is not an instructor or a working professional and you have their kind of person on the street understanding, make sure that they know about your topic. It isn't someone like because they're your friend, you're going to interview them. You need to have someone who is knowledgeable about the topic and is able to give information in an understandable way that actually relates to your to what it is you're writing. So whenever you collect those interviews, you are going to use a couple of direct quotes. And also, you want to be able to paraphrase information whenever you're going into or out of those direct quotes, or possibly in other parts of your article. Now, your article formatting, pay particular attention to how you write your headline and your subheadings. Remember, those are the first things that catch someone's eye online. Go back and review that information in online writing. You also want to have a lead paragraph and 4 to 6 body paragraphs. I'm looking for full sentences, primarily AP style, and also any bullets or numbering if you need to use it. But in general, remember to spelling, grammar, punctuation, and to check your AP style book, see if maybe there's a better way to write your information, something that is closer to the actual AP style. And of course, you want to have a closing, some way to wrap up your article, whether it's by summarizing information or if you're providing a call to action. And of course, you can include pictures or video or other media if like recordings or PDFs or something would support your article better, then use those. Whatever you're using, you want to make sure that you credit your sources of information. And I am including a recommended length for this. So, like 700 to 1600 words was the recommendation, mostly so you can get an idea of how much you're supposed to write. But at the end of the day, it's about quality content. You don't add words just to add words. We're looking for relevant information and fully developed ideas. So make sure that you are including peer reviewed, fact based information, that your ideas flow, and also that you have information that supports your lead and supports your main idea. So after your article, you'll include an example Twitter post. This one does have a 280 character limit. That's the limit on Twitter, and 1 to 2 hashtags. Here is a link where you can go to Twitter and see how they recommend writing a tweet. And we can see a tweet may contain photos, GIFs, videos, links, and text. And of course, they include information about how to post replies and mentions. But basically, you type up to 280 characters in your composition, and you can include up to 4 photos, a GIF, or a video in your tweet, and select the tweet button to post on your profile. And they also have an option to save as well. And they have source labels to help you understand who originally provided content, and also information about how to delete them, unfollow, block, mute, etc. And keyboard shortcuts and things. But the main part is how to tweet. So you want to create a tweet. You're not required to post it, but I'm looking for that format, 280 character limit, and a hashtag or possibly two hashtags, depending on your story. So when you're formatting your tweet, refer back to your headline. Think about how how you can best relate that information to your audience on Twitter, and write your tweet in that manner. Now, you are not required to post it on Twitter. I I had a screen grab here as an example. This is something where you're writing it out in your submission and leaving it there. And of course, you want to include your references. And your references are on the last page of your writing project submission. They are in APA format. If you're still struggling with that, um, you can email me or talk to me after class, and we can try to go through it together, see like maybe where you're having trouble. If you want more examples, this is the link to all of the reference examples. Go to each section and they'll explain how to create your tweet. Basically, take information from your source, put it, sorry, not your tweet, how to create your reference, and take the information from your outside source and put it into the example reference as explained. So use it as a format for you to follow. Now, the only thing you normally do not need to include is your interview. When you write, whenever you write, you are including your interview's information. You're explaining that you conducted the interview. Well, you do not include yourself in the writing, but it's understood that you collected this interview unless you say otherwise. Turn in the following on Moodle. So you're including your blog style article, your tweet, and your references. And we'll go over the additional project details a little later. Again, send me an email if you're having trouble, don't quite understand something, and I'll do my best to help.